Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Clay Township Board. Tonight is Tuesday, January 6th, and our first order of business is a Pledge of Allegiance. And Mary, would you lead us, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary. Our first item is an approval of minutes from the December 9th, 2014 regular meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. That we table this for next meeting.
Okay.
Move that we table this for next meeting.
Okay, we have
I second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to table approval of the minutes from the December 9th meeting. All those in favor for tabling the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will table approval of the December 9th meeting minutes till our next meeting, which is January 27th. Public comments. Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to address us tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to action items. And our first order of business in action items is to elect a chairman and secretary of the Clay Township Board for 2015. I will open nominations for chairman for 2015. Is there a motion for, or is there a recommendation?
I nominate Mary Eckert for chairman.
And I second that nomination. Is there anybody else? All those in favor of Mary Eckert as our chairman for 2015 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. I will now turn the meeting over to our new chairman, Mrs. Eckert.
Thank you very much. I would like to open the nominations for Secretary of the Board for 2015,
I would like to nominate Matt Snyder for secretary for 2015.
and I second that. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Congratulations, Matt. Thank you very much. The next item of business is establishing the newspaper of record for 2015. Doug?
As we do every year, this year I'm going to request us to stay with the Indy Star and the Times of Noblesville. No reason to change, and so that's my thought here, or recommendation, I guess I should say.
May I have a motion to that, please?
So moved.
A second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item C is a resolution, 2015-01-06-01 regarding official public bond for trustee, deputy trustee, and clerk. Doug, you want to speak about that, please?
Yeah, again, another formality we have to do every year, and that is we must get a bond for the handling of the township funds, and that's our clerk, our deputy trustee, and myself. We do the maximum of $300,000 because that's as high as you can get bond-wise, and we carry about $10 million in the bank. So,
All right, may I have a nomination to,
So moved.
thank you. I was
Second.
looking for the number. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next order of business is 2015 Clay Township Regional Waste District Board appointment and the letter. Doug?
yeah, after speaking with some of the board and some individuals on the outside, there's been a recommendation to appoint Chuck Ford to the Clay Township Regional Waste District Board. And this is a concurrence letter to you folks, which you just need to either agree with me or disagree with me. It's pretty simple.
May I have a motion to appoint Chuck Ford to the Clay Township Regional Waste Board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chuck, we'd love to have you come to the microphone, if you would, please, and say a few words. Let people see that you're our new appointment.
I appreciate your vote of support. I look forward to serving and learning what my capacity will be on this board, and I expect that I'll find some interesting issues that I have to deal with.
Thank you, and welcome. Doug, information items. The Clay Township Board appointment, 2015.
Okay, for my appointment for the Carmel Clay Parks Board for the next 4 years, effective July 5th, I think it is, isn't it? I believe it's July 5th, or January 5th, I mean. We're not there in July, are we?
I wish
But
we were.
go for the next 4 years is Jim Garrettson. He is he's been involved in the Carmel community for several years, a school teacher, former teacher, and most of the people that come through this office has been taught by him in one way or another, or knows him. So I think he'll do a great job with the Parks Board. I really do. So just want
Will
to
we
let you
have
know.
a formal appointment the way that we've just had on the wastewater?
No.
No, okay.
That's strictly my appointment.
Okay.
So you don't have to do anything with that.
All right, thank you. 2015 Township Board meeting schedule.
What I've done is I went out and I went through the whole year and setting up our all of our board meetings for this next year, or for 2015, and I'm sharing that with you. I've shared it with our attorney and our financial accountant. Gosh, Angie, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Angie.
I'm not used to having Angie up here. I used to have Brian up here. So, but what I'm going to do, and the main reason we're going to meet every month is basically with the fire construction project. I mean, if it comes to a month where we don't need to meet, then I will let you know. But I think that this project is going to move along pretty quickly. And I think we probably will need to have the architect and our CM here on a monthly basis to kind of update you and the community on where they are. So I'm gonna, that's what that's all about. Even though I started this last year, but I think this year it's something it's important that we stick to a monthly meeting just because of this project.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. The next item of business is the fire construction project update.
Yeah, at this time, I would like Kevin Cooper and John Barbie, which is John's our CM and Kevin's our architect from Axis. If they want to come up and say a few things about where it stands right now. I've also got Angie here, our accountant, in case you have any questions from the money standpoint of where we are. Okay, so John, if you or Kevin, either one, want to get up and say a few words.
Yeah, look, Kevin, sorry, I got a hand up while Kevin's up.
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm Kevin Cooper with
Thank you.
Axis Architecture. We're the architects. John Barbie with Envoys, handing out some executive summaries. Just real quick, briefly, what we've done between the last time you've seen me and were introduced to John, probably the second half of October through the month of November, we worked directly with the fire department closely in developing programs for Station 43, 44, and also a potential maintenance training and EOC building that might be located at 106th and Gray. And so that month and a half of time, we worked diligently with them, defined the scope and size of the projects, the square footages, the types of spaces. We then started working on plans, preliminary plans, potential elevations, and then John, in the month of December, has priced those. And so the executive summary you have in front of you is a summary of those costs. I'd like to just reiterate that we let the fire department dream quite a bit as far as their wants and needs for the training facility, their wants and needs for the new Station 44, and even the renovated Station 43. So having said that, you're seeing kind of the dream at this point, and I think John will summarize that between now and probably the next time you see us, we're going to refine the scope and the budgets and things like that as well. So, John?
Thank you.
Yeah, so as Kevin was explaining there, this is just kind of a normal course of action in these projects in the planning process, that it all starts with a dream and then reality hits and we got to figure out what we can do with the dollars that we have. Over the last several months, the real priorities have been Stations 43 and 44, and there's been a question of what's going to happen at the Training and Maintenance and Emergency Operations Center, and how big or how small did it need to be, or with today's numbers, could it even happen at all? We've met with the chief, actually just this afternoon, and have learned that maintenance and training is a very important piece to him. He would like to work with Station 43 and Station 44 and see what we can do from a materials and methods and constructability standpoint, a sizing, change scope, get some money out of those. That how much can we still do at that maintenance and training facility? And that maintenance and training facility scope could also come down where we kind of give them the shell and the infrastructure of what they need, and then they take it from there and they build and add on to it or finish the inside out as needed and over time. So with that said, you look at the bottom here, if that's what everybody's eyes always do, that's a very big number that we don't have the money for today. The training facility site, it doubled when the dreaming phase started. It went from 15,000 square feet to over 30,000 square feet. We're going to work here in the next couple weeks and have some more defined meetings with them to figure out now, what do you really need out of that? What can we economize on? And Station 43, it's a kind of a cramped facility today, but I think everybody would agree that $1.7 million on the little facility is a lot of money to invest there. The fire chief would like to see a lot of that money go to the maintenance and training facility, but still take care of improving 43, getting the weight facility out of the second floor, and making them be able to have a better facility like the other stations in the district. $5.8 million roughly, Angie, is what we have to work with. Those have been the limits and the constraints. This is where we kind of get heavy and nitty-gritty into the details of how do we get there and how do we get a project that solves everybody's needs, not only through the constructability and methods and scope changes, but also through just some creative bidding scenarios. Maybe there's a basement that is in 44, wasn't originally in the program, that Kevin had based his numbers off of a couple months back. That basement is a strong desire of the chief, but it might be bid as an alternate. So if the money's there on bid day, we can accept that and he can get the basement. If it's not, that goes so we can get more of a training and maintenance facility. So this is really just a report card today of where things stand, where the dream has ended up, and the next time we see you, we're going to be much more in reality. These numbers will shift around a decent amount with our next update as well. So, with that said, are there any questions?
Any questions, Paul?
I've got a kind of a rhetorical question that I'm just going to throw out here. I don't know if this has been explored, but is there any chance that we could try to get some financial cooperation from the city on these three items, on these three projects? My point is that I realize we have a target amount of money that we think we can go after, that we can use, that we can bond, pay for without affecting tax rate. And that's very important that we do that. Having said that, is there a possibility, and I don't know if any of you have talked to anybody from the city, is there a possibility that we could ask them, do you want to participate in this? I mean, we're in this together because of our joinder with fire, and I'm just curious to know if you think it's worth pursuing at least a conversation perhaps with the mayor or with Rick Sharp to see, do you have some money that you could help us with so that we can give these three facilities the money that they need? Certainly not a Rolls-Royce approach to this, but maybe better than a Volkswagen. And I'm not implying that what we have or what we're going to end up with is that. But is it worth going after, or is that just not a logical approach?
I have a meeting set up with the mayor on the 14th of January to talk a little bit. One thing is the $300,000 we have for that for COA in our budget. And I didn't think about talking to him about that, Paul, but I'd be happy to say something to him.
Well, I don't know
and see what he would.
what your
And
thoughts are.
one other thing too on this is the fact that, and we met yesterday in my office, Kevin and Angie and John, and Jeff, we met in the office there, and when you look at this, this is a Cadillac, okay? Or Rolls Royce, okay? So there's a lot of things that need to be cut. One of the things that I've said all along here is the 2 fire stations are priority. Now, I will tell you, they really do need a maintenance facility. Maintenance is very important here. The EOC and the training facility would be wonderful. And my thought was if we could go with more of a, and one of the things the chief told me is they have FF&E for these buildings, okay? So I'm just saying, okay, if we could put it up, you know, the brick and mortar, but things keep adding up. They keep adding things, and that's why we've got to sit back and say, okay, we've got to shut this down some. So what John was just talking about, we need to get serious about this, okay? Something that's 5.8, we talked about, we're up over 12 million. I mean, and first of all, we thought we can do the fire stations with no problem. But the fire chief, and I agree with the fire chief, he does need the maintenance facility. So I really do, I do agree with that. And I agree with the fact that you don't need the weights upstairs at 43. So that's why 43s and 44s are priority. And then we look at what we can all put together, whether it's the city or whoever, can come together and do something with this maintenance.
I guess I'm just curious to see if you guys think it would make any sense, or I don't know how amenable they would be to participate in this with us.
What do you think, Matt?
I don't, they don't have money.
Yeah,
I don't
mean,
think they do,
I
but
figured they
there's
didn't, or they don't.
no harm in talking about it to see.
Sue Finkham would probably be the best one to talk to from the council. Because
So long-
she's
so
really
long as it-
gun-ho about the 44s.
So long as it doesn't slow things down, I mean, it's worth exploring. But
Right.
I'm still, I mean, 5.8 has been what Angie's been telling us.
Right.
We're going to generate $300,000 this year. We're going to generate $300,000 next year. There's another $600,000 coming from that we're not giving to the city. So that brings us up to what did I just say? 6.4. And then I see, and I will not be convinced that there's any reason why we don't contribute cash. And I just don't think there's any reason for any government body to sit on the kind of cash we sit on. And the taxpayers don't pay taxes for us to sit on it.
But wait, Matt, that is money, that $6 million, you got to figure is parks money. Okay? So I can't touch that.
We have what about our investments that Carl handles for us? And the budget, I don't have it in
Cash
front of me.
reserves.
There's not that much there for
But there's
that.
enough to get a couple $100,000 even. I mean, there's enough.
I think we got to look into that before we start.
And one thing too, just to keep in mind as you're considering that, where I would, I guess, just caution you somewhat from spending down all of the reserves that you have in your accounts, because you do have money there. Majority of it goes to parks. We've already drawn some from the rainy day to pay for some of the soft cost. There is a potential for reimbursement. You don't have to, that's a choice. But one thing you need to consider is that just in the last couple months, we had a rating surveillance call with Standard & Poor's. When they came out by the phone, looked at the financials of the township, and then assessed our credit worthiness. One of the things they look at are some of those cash balances. That equates into lower interest cost. So I would be concerned somewhat if we spend down all the reserves that we have, when we go to actually get a rating for these bonds, one of the things they're gonna look at is, what is our cash position? Do we still have cash set aside if something happens, that we're not so cash strapped that we've used everything that we had, which they could, at that point, if they chose to, actually lower the rating, which would then result in a higher interest rate, which then could also end up being an increased cost to the township.
But I don't-
So
I don't
would just
think-
caution everyone to look at everything when you're looking at cash
And I
balances.
understand, I've heard, and you've said that before, but after the bonds are issued, they can't change the rate on us.
Well, they do look at it every 3 years. So just like this year, we didn't have a bond issued, but because we already have bonds outstanding, they now have a policy, where in the past it was every 3 years. It just depends kind of on the size. They've looked at the township. It has been about every 3 years, I think they came out and looked. And that really just is part of their ongoing surveillance. At that time, they could lower the rating at any time.
Okay, well, I'm not saying we need to empty it, but I'm saying there's a little bit of money there if we need to, if we had to. I'm also saying there's another $600,000 that's not accounted for in this COAT money, or more. If we, for 3 years down the road, there's $900,000. I mean, And then the soft costs that I don't believe we should reimburse ourselves from, that's my opinion. I don't think should be reimbursed from the bond issuance. Then you can subtract that from the total. I think 5.8 is not as bad as it sounds when you start adding up these little pockets of money. I mean, I think we're more at like 7 when it's all said and, when we find all the money we've got. And then on this training center, I had always anticipated just a giant building, and then they can do what they want inside of it. Throw a couple garage doors on it, and they can finish it out.
And that's part of what we needed to refine with them. So there's no doubt that these numbers are representing probably a heavier finish than what everybody else has conceived, but we haven't really been given that information of, here's the level of finish to do. So
Because that maintenance garage, I mean, I had anticipated a big room, you could pull in and out a few trucks, and then if they need to do training inside that room, they can pull the trucks out, and they've got a giant open space to
Right.
do training in.
So, for example, we've been talking the last couple of days, if we were just gonna do the maintenance garage, we would probably need $1 million, $1.5 million range to get that maintenance garage built. There are some foundation concerns out there until we get some engineering done. That's an old lime sediment
Sure.
pond. Everything else has been built on piles that are 130 feet deep. So there's some uniqueness to building out there, but it doesn't prevent you from building there. It's just some cost that you don't get to see in the building.
Have we definitely ruled out not doing anything with the building on Township and 116th? It's still just sitting there. Can that be?
No, it's not just sitting there. The Matthew 25 Center, they house furniture and stuff for the needy
Right.
in there. So, I mean,
But it's
you
the
know.
Township's building, and if that could
Absolutely
be
it
used
is.
effectively
You
for
know,
the
but
fire department.
But I don't think for what we're going to need, I don't think there's going to be sufficient money coming from that to help with what we're doing here. I mean, it's going to be a little bit, but, I think, and I'm really on the same line that Matt's on. And let me explain, is when they were in there, we know that the 2 fire stations pretty well can be done, okay? That's not a problem. So we're really looking at this maintenance. And, I will talk to the mayor about what Paul said. But what Matt's saying is, we could put up a building, for $1.5 million. And yesterday when we were talking is, let's make it to where they can add on as time goes by. It doesn't have to be all done right now, but at least lay it out to where additions can be put on down the road. You put your maintenance facility up, one end, you put your EOC, the other end, you put your training facility. So, it doesn't have to all be done in this next year and a half. But however, I know we have to have it done for the bonds to go through and everything. We have to have in it by July of 2016 or whatever. Okay, so we have to think about that. But I will always be looking for where we can maybe be able to come up with money. I mean, I know the fire department thought about a grant, but that was shot down too. So, we're going to always look and see where we might be able to cut or get some money to do everything we can for.
I'm looking at this target column. This is what I'm kind of going off of. But if we got 43 down to 1.5 million, which is 150,000.
Right.
If we got 44 down to 4 million, or at 4 million, which is the target, that's 5.5 million. Just by adding the next 2 years' COIT money, we'd have $900,000 to put towards the training center. If we don't reimburse soft costs, which I imagine are probably going to be $200,000-$300,000 for your all's fee. I actually can't remember what your fees were, but
We've got, these soft costs aren't just our fees, but those are, the soft costs are broken out here on a separate line item for each facility.
well, I'm not going to add all those up. But
No.
But you don't replenish the soft costs, then there's another couple $100,000. We're at $300,000 now. We're at $1.2 million for the training center, and then we don't have to dip into rainy day or any of our other depletions. And Angie's happy with credit rating.
While you're crunching all these numbers, I do think it's also important to tell you that when we do an estimate like this is soup to nuts with the exception of any land acquisition, legal financing costs. and impact fees. We're making the assumption that the city will waive those if there were to be any.
Well, that'd be $6,000, impact fees, $2,000 a parcel, I think. Are you talking about for the parks impact fees, or?
Well, impact or EDUs for road impact and the sewer impact fees. Also being the existing facilities, tearing one down, rebuilding it should be equal, so they shouldn't have any there. But when I say soup to nuts, we have furnishings and fixtures in here, loose furnishing and fixtures allowances of $150,000. The chief just told us an hour ago that I'll figure out where to get that, so that will be coming out of here. There's $84,000 of temporary operations facilities, trailers that they can actually live and
Sure.
cook in while we're constructing and renovating these. That cost, we believe, either needs to come out because it can't be funded by the bond, but it needs to be paid for from somewhere. So it's either cash here, or if the chief can come up with
And I think
that.
the chief made the comment too, that he could budget some of this out
I
of his
think
own
he's,
budget.
yeah, I thought he saw.
You know, and that EMS fund is another avenue
And they
too.
get a lot of money from that EMS.
Yeah,
fund.
they probably bring in over $1 million
Yeah.
a year.
And
So,
that's exactly what it should be
I
intended
mean, they
for.
got other things to pay for, but I mean, but still, part of that could be used too.
Right. So this is the big picture, but now it's kind of, let's play the puzzle out of where do all the pieces come from.
Well, I mean, looking at it, there's nothing on here that scares me or I have any concern for, because I think at the end of the day, there's going to be the money. You get that maintenance garage figured out and tell them we're going to build them a giant building, and they can make it into whatever they want.
Right.
Okay, any other comments?
The only last one I have is that our goal is by the end of this month to have a definition of what we are doing at that maintenance and training facility, mainly because of timeline and the bond expiration, or when we need to be complete with the work for the funding of the bonds. Which
I think we're
we're
probably
on the August
a little
track.
behind schedule somewhat from what we'd originally talked about earlier in the fall, just because of the fact that we obviously have some scope changes that need to be made. So at this point, we're hoping that they can really narrow down the scope, figure out what everyone needs, get that cost down. So by February, we have a really good idea of what the size is, so we can actually start the financing portion, go get their bond rating, start marketing it. So hopefully by March, into March, we actually can close and the funds will be available. So pushing it back at this point, probably a month and a half, but I think it's needed to make sure everyone has enough time to get what that they need to have done. Important too, though, is that we actually get the funds so they have time for construction during the summer and spring
Right.
of the next year. Our goal is to keep the tax rate consistent. So in order for us to do that, we really need to make sure that everything is ready for occupancy by July of 16. That will allow us to actually levy our first tax rate for August 16 payment. What we don't want to have happen is we delay it, so then our taxpayers have a tax rate this year, next year they don't have one, and then it gets like it's a brand-new debt, and then people are yelling because now we've added new debt. So the goal is for us to get it done, so we really can maintain a neutral impact for all the taxpayers. So that's really the goal, why we need to get
Yeah.
scope cleaned up so we can get this thing moving.
And your funding delay hasn't necessarily delayed our anticipated construction schedule yet.
No, yeah, we're still on board as long as
Yeah.
we keep moving and get everyone focused to really narrow this down to something that's gonna work for everybody.
Right.
What's your anticipated letting?
May. Yeah. Maybe one package in April for the demolition of 44, so we could get a jump on that and have a clean site ready when all the rest of the contractors bid.
Is there any salvageable material in there?
I don't know that yet. Haven't studied it for that.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Have a good evening.
The next order of business is the annual meeting report date.
Just a little note there for the January 27th will be our next board meeting, and that we'll have the annual report at that time. Just kind of a reminder.
Minor transfers within the 2014 budget, Doug.
And the minor transfers are from last year that we don't need approval, but I always like to bring them out and give them to you guys so you can look them at if you have any questions for it. This information.
And then the 1782 notice for 2015.
And we've got our 1782 notice, so we're able to now spend our budget for 2015. Everything went really well with that. Nothing to add from that standpoint. So, and this is pretty early for us to get this. You don't normally, it's January or February, so everything looks up to that, and really no changes from that standpoint.
Good. Financial questions from the board? Paul?
None?
Matt? All right. Board comments?
No.
Any
Good luck
comment?
this year.
Oh, well, thank you,
Oh, yes.
and congratulations too. You'll take good notes, I'm sure.
If anybody can read them.
Excuse me. I'd just like to thank Chuck for coming tonight, and to thank both of you for the report on the fire station. It's a pretty exciting year for us, and there's a lot ahead, and it'll be a very interesting year, too. Any announcements, Doug?
Yeah, one thing, John and Kevin, one thing I wanted to, you talked about the end of this month. Now, will you be back at the January 27th meeting to have that, or are you looking at February? The end of February for the board on the maintenance facility?
It's
Okay, be February
24th.
24th. So you won't be back the 27th, or you will be? You know why? It doesn't make any difference. You can let me know the week before. You can let me know the week before, okay?
Yeah, if we need some action from the board, definitely will be, we may be able to feed you a report that is exists out there.
No?
Okay. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.